Mussolini was upset because he was slighted. He went into Sicily, thought he was going to get a hero's welcome, and the mob guys just ignored him.
Right.
He never forgot
Didn't
it.
they steal his hat or something?
Yeah. And he never, they didn't like him. So he never forgot it, and he declared war on the Mafia.
Right.
And that's when they started coming over here.
Right.
Do you think, is it romanticizing this idea that when the Mafia is in charge, there's some order, or is it, you call it a crime family? I watch these videos of roving bands in Chicago, ramming cars into department stores, running and taking whatever they wanted. And I kind of feel like when you see these old stories about when the Mafia was much stronger 100 years ago, or when you've got strong organized crime, that kind of stuff doesn't happen. But maybe it does in other ways. I don't know. What do you think?
You know what, Tim? First of all, I slipped, when I say crime family, even though obviously we were involved in criminal activity. But, I hear so many people say crime family. We normally just call it the family, but I guess I've been programmed lately. But, one thing I have to tell you, there was no crime in our neighborhood. Nobody would ever get away with doing anything like that. Never. We took care of our communities. We took care of our neighborhoods. People loved us. I mean, look, if you see clips of John Gotti now, the people in the neighborhood loved him because he took care of the neighborhood. And all of us did the same thing. So that would never happen. There would never be rampant crime like that anywhere, where we were.
It's better.
Absolutely.
I don't know. I'm sorry. The way I think about it is the family, Mafia, whatever people want to refer to it as, because I'm sure people use different names for different organizations, whatever it may be. I mean, they know outright if you piss off your neighborhood's going to turn on you, and they're going to work with other people to bring you down. But more importantly, it's your neighbors. It's what you're doing to improve your lives, improves the lives of the people around you. And I feel like what we see now with the crime in all these cities is just social disorder, no connections whatsoever. And so the story I always love to bring up is that scene from A Bronx Tale where the mob boss hears the ruckus, motorcycles. He walks over and he sees the bikers and they're in the bar and he's like, hey, what's the problem? And the bartender says, these guys aren't dressed appropriately for the bar. Biker turns around and he's like, look, man, we just want to have one beer and then we'll go. And he says, spoken like a gentleman, give the man a beer. And I respect that tremendously, that these guys don't fit in. They're not from the neighborhood. They're being noisy, but he was nice. He says, okay, we're going to get you a beer. Then the biker shakes the beer up. They all spray the bartender down. My boss says, okay. He's like, now you got to leave. And then the guy turns around and says, F you. Turns around, they start laughing. He walks over, pulls the door closed, locks it, and says, now you just can't leave. And then the boys come in the back with guns and baseball bats and crowbars and beat the crap out of those guys. I'm not going to, in the real world, I'm not a big fan of going around and just getting into bar fights or anything like that. But the idea of the mob boss, he was being nice. These guys weren't wearing suits. They weren't wearing collared shirts. But he was nice to them. And then they disrespected him, and then this is what you get. And so that idea, in my mind, I'm thinking, were we not better off when you get a chance to be a gentleman and they treat you with respect and you can live your life?
Well, let me tell you, Chaz Palminteri is a very dear friend of mine, and I've seen that movie so many times. There's so many iconic little, points of wisdom that Chaz put in that. And he wasn't part of the life, but he knew the life well. He had a lot of, relationships there. But that's exactly how it would have been handled. It's all about respect. All right, we'll show you respect, just don't cross the line. And when they did, they paid the price for it. But, again, it's about respect. In the neighborhood, you respect your neighborhood. You respect the people around you. You respect your family. And, we've lost that. People say to me all the time, Michael, you guys must have hated the police. And, what do you think about this defunding the police? I said, that's the most ridiculous idea that I've ever heard. I said, you got to have law and order. We didn't disrespect the police. What we used to tell the FBI and the cops, listen, we understand you're on one side, we're on the other. We get it. You have a job to do. Fine. Do your job. If you do your job better than we do ours and we go down, we go down. Just don't frame us and don't harass our family. That's what we would tell them. But if you get us fair and square, no problem. We were never disrespectful to them in that
Did they
way.
try that often, framing?
Well, listen, my dad was framed on a case. He got a 50-year sentence, did 40 on the 50, and I'll take it to my grave that my dad was innocent in that case. I investigated it thoroughly. So, yeah, does it happen? Absolutely. Today I can't even believe how, wide open it is. They don't even care anymore. Back then they used to hide it a little bit, but now it's gotten out of hand. But, you know, it is what it
When do
is.
you think that change happened? When it stopped being hidden and they became so blatant with it in terms of the government and police?
You know, for me, it seems like it happened in the last, 7, 8, 9 years.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't recall being at this out in the open.
Right.
And it's, listen, for me, the most frightening thing you can have in government are two things. Number one, when the party in power starts to weaponize the Department of Justice and their other agencies to go after their political enemies, problem, really problem. And I think we're seeing that. And secondly, when you have the media that's supposed to be non-biased and impartial start covering for that, same party.
Yeah.
And I think we're seeing that now both ways. And to me, it's very dangerous, very dangerous.
Let me ask you about the family, right? You said, initially you said, people refer to it as the crime family. You said maybe you were programmed, it's called the family. What is the average day-to-day for the family? What do they do?
Well, it all depends on who you were in that life. I would separate the guys in that life, the made guys that actually took the oath. There's two categories. You had the racketeers and you had the gangsters. Now, the racketeers, normally, they were the guys that brought the money in. They knew how to use that life to benefit them in business, and they were earning money. In our family, Colombo family at that time, we had 115 made guys that actually took the oath. Out of that 115, maybe 20 of us were earners, the racketeers. The other guys, they were the gangsters. They did a lot of the heavy work, and they just didn't have the ability to earn. So maybe they had a no-show job. Maybe they're doing a little gambling, little numbers, whatever they could do to grind out a living. But the gangsters couldn't really be the racketeers because they didn't know how. But the racketeers had to be a gangster also because you're going to get called upon to do certain things. So, it all depends on what your level was in that life.
What's heavy work?
Well, listen, I
Physical.
get asked this question all the time, and, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. And look, people got killed in that life. There's no question about it. You cross the line, you suffer the consequences. So it could have been that. Do you send people out to beat people up? Not really, but it happens. Sometimes guys get crazy and they, they do things they shouldn't be doing. But, look, and I want to set the record straight. When we take the oath, we're told that there are certain things that we can't do. You never, ever mess around with another made guy's wife, daughter, sister, mother. That's death. That could be very, very serious. You don't betray the family, obviously. You don't become an informant, obviously. You got to be honest in business. If you're caught stealing and you shouldn't be, you could suffer serious consequences. But the thing is, we all understand that going in. And you're told straight out, you violate the life and you could pay for it. And it might be your best friend that's called upon to do it because the life comes first. So it's just the way it is.
What would you say is the primary purpose of the family? I mean, was it just you were in this together to work together to better each other's lives, or was there a stated goal of we're going to racket, we're going to be gangsters?
Well, listen, we wanted to make money. At the end of the day, it's about money. We had a lot of power and influence. I always say the golden years of Cosa Nostra, Mafia in this country, really from the late 40s, early 50s, right through to the mid 80s. That's when we had a lot of power and control. We had a lot of control over the unions. We had influence right into the White House. I mean, there's no question about it. We had a lot of power. Not the same now. But, what was the idea? Make money, have influence, and live a good life. That was it. And we would cross the line if we had to.
It's also worth noting that a lot of people who came over and started the families were leaving Italy because of Mussolini.
Absolutely.
Right? So
absolutely.
in a way, they were escaping fascism. Mussolini did not like the mobsters in Italy.
He did not. No, Mussolini was upset because he was slighted. He went into Sicily, thought he was going to get a hero's welcome, and the mob guys just ignored him.
Right.
He never forgot
Didn't
it.
they steal his hat or something?
Yeah. They didn't like him. So he never forgot it, and he declared war on the Mafia.
Right.
And that's when they started coming over here.
Right.
So, racketeering, gangsters. What is the racketeering? What did that look like for the family?
The RICO statute was devastating to the families, no question about it. A lot of people like to say it was John Gotti that took the family down because he was flamboyant and he was out there and all of that. John did not take the family down. There were other guys like him. Joe Colombo was a flamboyant guy. There was a lot of guys that maybe not as, outspoken as him, but he didn't bring the family down. It was the racketeering law. You know, I believe till today the law is unconstitutional, but it's there to stay. And they used it very effectively against our families. And it was very hard to defend. And, you know, it took away double jeopardy. There was no double jeopardy before. There was no federal murder before racketeering, but under the RICO statute, murder became a predicate act and people can go down for murder. So it was very devastating.